Well, believe it or not, it's only the 2nd of September, and this is a Laelia anceps hybrid that is just starting to bloom. And this is typically 2 to 3 months earlier than most Laelia anceps. So this particular hybrid is a Sappho Laelia Darthialia crossed with just an unknown Laelia anceps. And I believe this came from Santa Barbara Orchid Estate a number of years ago. And this particular Laelia anceps hybrid is first to bloom for me, but this is the first time it's open blooms on September 2nd, so extremely early. And it just shows the benefit of having hybrids that give you different bloom times than the species. So as I said, this Laelia anceps would normally start blooming for me November, December at the earliest. So I'm going to walk around to the other side of the greenhouse and show you a few other orchids that are in bloom this first week of September. And this is Miltonia belvedere. It is George McHatton, the variety name. And I was fortunate enough to get a division of this plant from Kathy and Joe Parker up in Pacifica when I visited their greenhouse, probably 6-7 years ago now. But they had a spectacular plant which probably had 20 or so blooms on it. Mine suffers a little bit with warmer temperatures, but nonetheless, there were 3 bloom spikes on this one. I've got a second division with 3 bloom spikes developing. But as I said, Miltonias do take a little warmer temperatures than Miltonopsis, the pansy orchids. But this one, just the coloration here is just great. And I thought you'd like to see a photo of the original plant from the Parkers in Pacifica and note the large size of the flowers on this very well-grown plant. And then we'll just move down to Prostica brassavola, which is still doing nicely in bloom. And I think you'll agree those colors are just fantastic, and how the plant stands out with that very prominent lip. And then one more that's just come into bloom, and this is one of Sunset Valley orchids, one of my favorites. And this is Potnaria. Let's see if we can focus on that a little bit better. Paradise Rose in Liebenkreuz Diamond Orchids from Peter Lynn of Diamond Orchids and Diamond Bar. But just super saturated, reddish purple flowers. Blooms several times a year for me. There are 2 bloom spikes right now with more growths coming, so it will be in bloom for quite a number of months throughout the year. But again, one of the Sunset Valley orchids, semi-compact Cattleya hybrids that really has a phenomenal flower. So that's pretty much it for the 2nd of September, and I'll be back to show you other things that are going to be in bloom later this month. There's a number of flower spikes developing on a number of orchids, so there should be some good things to show you in the weeks ahead. From last month's video, you've seen my Cataseum Brazilian Spring Kestrel, which Eric was kind enough to give me a few years back. And I want to show you what happens when a bee comes to pollinate these flowers. Cataseums are quite amazing in the mechanism they have to transfer pollen onto the backs of pollinating insects, typically bees. Unfortunately, the bee that visited a little while ago did not visit this flower, so I'm going to do a stand-in, and here's my stand-in bee. And so it comes up, looks at the flower, and boom! I don't know if you saw that, but the Cataseum actually, there's a trigger mechanism, and the pollen gets deposited on the back of the bee. Pretty amazing coevolution and pollen transfer in Cataseums. And in case you missed it, here's a little bit of a close-up to show you exactly what goes on. So you see the 2 little trigger hairs. Boom. Pretty amazing. Well, we're now at September 22nd, and it's been a phenomenal growing summer. Our highs never really got into the hundreds. We've stayed in the low 80s to high 70s most of the summer, which, unlike the rest of the country, very atypical of the Central California coast. So we'll take a quick look at a few of the things that are blooming now. This is one of Cal Orchid's epidendrons. This was one that I had left outside most of last year, and it suffered quite a bit with cooler temperatures, but it's coming back quite nicely this year with a lot of new growths now that it's being kept in the greenhouse with a little warmer conditions. And mentioned Renathera Red Dragon. This is the first spike that's opened, and I'm pretty pleased that we got the second spike that's just starting to open, and a third on a much taller growth that's opening. So come here in another month, we're gonna have 3 huge flower spikes open. And in the afternoon, when the sun directly hits it through the western doors, this thing really lights up. And then this is the Renathera Tom Thumb, which you've seen before, has been blooming for probably the last 3 months. And again, I really like the Renatheras. They provide a lot of nice red, yellow, and orange coloration throughout the year, and the blooms do last quite some time. We'll feature this coming up here in another month. The second bloom spike on Vanda Picaris Delight is still going strong. And I should point to an Australian Dendrobium, Shiraz Ice, and it blooms throughout the year for me. It's a bit overgrown in a net pot, should have been repotted about 5 years ago, and I may make an attempt to repot it, or at least pot up some of the khaki divisions come here in the springtime. And then one of the Dendrobium culpersoni hybrids. And again, I'm too warm for culpersoni species, but these hybrids that have been developed by Equigenera are really doing quite well. And this one is Mountain's Butterfly Kisses. And I've had this now for 2 years, and it's naturalized on a piece of grapevine and doing well. So I've moved a number of my other acquisitions from our orchid sale early in the year in June, and hopefully they'll do as well in this area. This one's suffering a little bit, got a little sunburn, but doing well. And then I've got a few in Hydroton clay pellets in net baskets, and these get misted pretty regularly, so they're staying cooler, and I've got high hopes for those. So we'll just move along and show you 1 or 2 more orchids. This one's a favorite. This is Andrus, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right, Ludiola. And it doesn't like my cooler winter temperatures, and it doesn't like the higher temperatures when we do get high temperatures in the summer, but it has these just great bloom spikes and these luminous white flowers with the orange centers. Here's another one. And again, these are mounted on pieces of Merlot grapevines that were being pulled out of a local vineyard. And so Chris, a member of the Orchid Society, and I jumped in the truck and some chainsaws out and gathered and cut a bunch of grapevine to use for mounting. And they really do hold up well. They're very durable, last for a long period of time. And some of these smaller orchids do real well mounted on them. And then turning to the other side of the bench, again, you've seen this in the past, Rhincostylus retusa. This plant is growing in a fairly shady location. It does get some bright light in the afternoons, but 2 flower spikes with just hundreds and hundreds of these great fragrant purple flowers. So that's Rhincostylus retusa. And again, as I've mentioned, if you looked at how this orchid grows, I should be too cool in the winter to grow it, yet keeping it dry. I think you agree, it's done fairly well for me. And then there's a Elsie, Laelia Cattleya mini purple that grows very well. And this is the cerulean form. And cerulean form orchids, I have a hard time growing. They tend to be more delicate, require a little more care than I seem to be able to provide. But LC Mini Purple Cerulean, here we go. Blooms 2 or 3 times a year for me. I've got 3 plants of this. This one's got a new growth, and there'll probably be a bud that develops in that new growth. So we'll get flowers now and again in about 2 or 3 months. And I've got a few more that I'm growing up above that are showing signs of buds. And then of course, my Laelia anceps hybrid that's blooming early, and it's still doing really quite well. And I'll just move down towards the shadier part of the greenhouse, and I'll just show you a few things that are coming in the months ahead. We've got a Stanhope that's got 2 nice bloom spikes developing, so those will be pretty fun to watch when they bloom in about 2 months. And another Stanhope, oops, let's get in here, and you can see the 2 bloom spikes starting to emerge from the bottom of the wire basket. So those are coming. Laelia anceps are sending up spikes, and we'll have to start lowering those baskets so that the blooms are at eye level, and we can appreciate them come here in about 2 months. And I do like cochleanthes. They're kind of an odd, shadier growing orchid. They tend to like to be kept very moist. You can see all of the moss in the basket. And this is a hybrid from Sunset Valley Orchids, and Tim Culbertson brought these to our show in June. And this is Cochleanthes discolor and Pescatory anthes star sapphire. So you get this really intense purple coloration. And this is Cochleanthes aromatica. And boy, it lives up to its name. It has got a wonderful gardenia vanilla fragrance. And I'm happy to report, I think I've got 3 or 4 flowers developing. And it grows in hydroton clay pellets, kept in a saucer of rainwater, so it stays moist all the time. So those are the Cochleanthes. Let me get this tag back in. And then Encyclia brassavola, still going strong. This has been blooming for probably the last 6 weeks, and a pretty phenomenal flower. And again, it's growing in large chunks of bark in a net pot inside a clay pot, which keeps the roots fairly humid. Miltonias continue to send up spikes, so next month we'll see more Miltonias. We've got these fantastic spikes developing of the Laelia anceps. We've got Cattleya perseviliana semi-alba, which got a number of sheaths that are developing. And then there's a few Paphiopedilums. And then we'll just end with one last Zygopedilum hybrid. Again, this comes from Sunset Valley Orchids. And some of the newer Zygopedilum hybrids are really pretty nice. And so we'll just end with this. I'm going to say thanks for watching, and I'll be back next month with hopefully a lot more blooming orchids. Thanks for watching.